We are live. How exciting. I'm going to give minutes for people to join, and we're going to be talking about something really interesting. We're talking about I am doing everything right, so why am I still overwhelmed? And this came from a conversation I was having with someone on Reddit, of all places, and really candid conversation. If anyone's been on Reddit, you know that there's no holds barred. People just say how they feel, which means that you get a true feel of what people are experiencing. And I had really candid conversation with someone who was talking about how they're doing it, they're getting 8 hours sleep, they're going on the runs, they're just everything textbook that they're being told or what they're being fed, what they're seeing online, they were doing. And so the question then is, why is my body not responding like that then? They found that they were still getting sick, they were still not having the energy they were looking for. There was just a lot of things going on in that they thought would be doing these things. And so today we're talking, for those of you watching who are experiencing this, maybe are doing the right thing. You are the ones who are, that you're taking the breaks, you're taking the holidays, you are seeing your GP, you are trying to eat well, trying to sleep well, but things are still not getting to the stage where you feel energized anymore. You feel depleted no matter what you do. This is going to be for you. This is going to be specifically for you. So I'm going to give it a few minutes and let some people enter, maybe a couple minutes. And what I would love to do, if you're in the room, if you're watching this, just put where you're from in the chats. One thing I love about having international, the World Wide Web, is you can connect with people from all over the world. So let me know where you are. Let me know where you are. Are you from UK, America, like Nigeria, Sierra Leone, South Africa? Where are you from? Are you from South America or Asia? Australia? I was watching the Married at First Sight just now, and the Australian version, and that's why that was on the forefront. So where are you from? Let me know in the chats while we some see people. You'll be able to sit them down, give them a beverage or something like that. Hey, Nassis, what's going on? Texas and Texas, US. So good to see you. And I'm back now. Like I don't know if you know, I had surgery last year. So the second half of last year was a bit of a myth for me. So I'm now getting back onto my feet and everything. So I think that we did have a chat about us collaborating in some way or coming on my podcast or something like that. We had a conversation. I'll have to go back through, but it'll be great to do that again. And Protein from South Africa, amazing. And I was a guest on the podcast. So thank you so much for having me again, Pauline. It was an absolute honor. It was a lot of fun actually, the conversation we keep them coming. Let me know how you're doing. Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, you're feeling today. And this can be with anything. It can be, is it physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically? Is it to do with career, friends, family? Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Just put a number in the chats while we get going. I did one of the things I'm doing right now is a little Q&A online. I'm trying to get used to TikTok and all these, and I'm asking people to ask me questions around burnout, stress, and especially workplace stress. So if you have any questions like that, please put them in the chats as well. And I'm responding to those with video responses. And the idea with those is I get to answer one person's question, which is probably people's question. And we had one recently, well, but I'll get back to that at another time. So for now, I think it's about a good time to get started. We are 6 minutes in. What I'll do is, I don't have slides today, but I've just got mine. I'm just going to chat through them. Let me see. Oh, you want me back again? Thank you. I want to be back. I'm ready. Whenever you're ready. I'm how. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'd love to be back again. It was a great conversation. A lot of research was done, and it was just brilliant. Like, I really enjoyed it. I really like being on both sides of the interview channel, being the interviewer and the interviewee. So, and this year is my year to be seen. That's what I'm working on at the moment. So I've done a lot of work in the backgrounds. I've done lot of work with different leaders, things like that. And a lot of what I've done has been through word of mouth, which I'm absolutely blessed for. But as I'm writing my book, as I'm starting my podcast, which is launched this weekend, and as I'm starting to build more and work with more people, I'm realizing that one thing I really want is to just get out there more. I'm realizing that there's a lot of people who are trying everything, which is what this particular episode is about, trying everything. And it's just, and what I'm realizing is, to be able to either prevent or recover from burnout, there's a number of things that need to be understood about how burnout works to be able to help, which means that you could be doing a lot of stuff, but if it's not in conjunction with a certain number of things, then a lot of the time you're not going to get the results you're looking for. So Proline gave a 4. Okay. So in terms of the 4 out of 10, that is relatively just below midway. And a question I have for you, just to think about, you don't necessarily need to share, but you're definitely welcome to, is what's making a 7 or 8? So is there something that requires your attention? Is there something that's been going on that has been drawing energy from you in such a way? But then also on the flip side, what is it making what is more? How come it's not a 1? Something must be going right. You're not at the rock bottom, that something is working. And I think that's also important to acknowledge when this kind of question is. We can sometimes look at a number like 4 and feel like, oh, I would like it to be there, which is great. A big question to ask is what I can do to get it there. Is there a specific element of my life at the moment which, if it was resolved, would bring the rest of the numbers up? The average, just in general, you feel like you're overwhelmed, maybe there's something that's happened which is a life event, and this is very specific season which is draining from you in some kind of way. There's a lot of things that can be happening. Or think about how long that number this is for any of you listening to this. When you're doing this exercise and you're thinking to yourself, where am I out of 10? How long have you been at that number? A lot of the time you can track the length of a specific feeling, a specific emotion, specific stage, by her, and then look at what was happening around time. If you have been feeling away for a few months, then ask yourself, what happened a few months ago? What might have contributed to the way I'm feeling, in a good way and in a way that could be, improved in some kind of way. But yes, definitely a pleasure to see you again. Thank you for being here, Pauline. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who's watching. Just to reiterate, today is doing everything right. So why am I still overwhelmed? And just to reiterate, this came from a conversation I had on Reddit with someone who was doing all of the textbooks correct. They were taking the breaks. They were going off for their walks. They were being in nature. They were eating the right things, getting them out of sleep. And they were wondering, why am I still drained? Why is my body still collapsing? And why am I feeling ill? Why aren't I feeling energized? Why am I feeling depleted all the time? And the conversation we had that followed is really what I'm going to be talking about here today. We went back into the basics about how stress and how workplace stress and pressures actually function on the body. Then we looked at how that manifested in how she's feeling. And then we looked at what to do about it. And so today we're going to be going through that journey. And so if you have any questions, put it in the chat as we go. If you are on LinkedIn, I've put the link in the comments. So if you want to join me on stage, all you got to do is press that button and it will bring you into the chat and you can join me. We can chop it up. You can ask me questions. One thing I'd like to check though, how is my audio? Could you just put um, one for yes and two for no, if you can hear it or not? Can you hear it? One for yes, two to hear if I'm being audible, because this is obviously also going to be a replay. So it would be a shame if on the replay you can't hear me. It's one of these things where we have to ask all the time, just because it's not necessarily guaranteed that this technology will be working the way we want it to. All right, so let me see if I can join this as well and see what you see. So let's begin. I think that, just by the way, I'm Andre. I just realized that not everyone in here might know who I am. You might be jumping on here from LinkedIn, you might be jumping on here from YouTube, you might not have a clue. Someone might have sent you this link. But it's Andre Bright. I'm a burnout prevention coach. I have a background in architect impact projects in Sierra Leone, where I was born and raised. And right now in this season, I help senior leaders who are struggling with stress. And often we don't necessarily word it this way. Usually what happens is they're high performing, but there's something that's unsustainable about the rate that what they're doing. And some of these fractures tend to happen because, as a high performer, someone who's a senior manager, someone professionally and personally relying on you, you learn how to mask things, you learn how to build systems so you can function. But then the flip side of that is that because you're so good at masking, something wrong. And I had a client recently, and we had a whole conversation this, because they felt like they're always the one that's there for other people and no one is there for them. Like they're always asking, are you really okay, etc. And one of the things that came up from the conversation that followed is that they are so good at masking that how could these other people know that there's something wrong? They're always the one who's asking them. So there's always almost no space for someone else to interject and say, are you okay? If you're that good at masking, you're performing highly, which means that your floor is probably someone else's ceiling. And so they might not notice, they might not think to ask. And this is something that's really important, because often this prescribing, who are the people I work with, are the kind of people. Oh, Pauline says number one, so you can hear it. Thank you so much. They're the kind of people who are, they don't want to share their burdens with people, even though they don't feel burdened by other people, if that makes sense to you. And you might be able to relate to this. You're the rock of the team, you're the rock of the household, you're the one everyone comes to solve problems, but we feel like you can't go anywhere because you always have that role. And if you look past over previous talks that I've done, we did one which is when responsibility becomes identity, right? And the reason why I'm going through all of this is because sometimes, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, sometimes it's not necessarily the individual activities that are causing the stress, it's the roles we have, which we find difficult to shake because it's formed part of our Steve, long time, yes, from Florida, in the house. Amazing. So good to see you again. It's been a while. I am back in the building. I'm back on my feet. My recovery game is true, and you'll be seeing a lot more of me. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you responding to the call. And so I wonder, for you in the audience, is any of this relatable? Just put Y for yes and N for no. Do you relate to some of the things I've been talking about? The role that people have, where you're constantly there for everybody, or you're doing all the right things and nothing's working. If you're here, I'd guess that's probably something you can relate to, but I don't want to assume. as there was a movie, I can't remember what year it was, but they said, you don't want to make assumptions because then you make a AWS out of you and me. So it would be great to hear, is this something you can relate to? Put a Y for yes and N for no. And thank you for coming. Thank you for attending. Um, so in terms of who is likely to be here, I would guess that you are often what I call the responsible ones. I usually say highly driven, deeply responsible. So you're the yeah, why? Okay, so Christy, you can relate to it 100%. So you're highly driven, deeply responsible. So you're the kind of person who keeps going. There was another question on TikTok recently and on Instagram about the difference between being highly driven and burnt out as a motivation. So highly driven generally has this positive vibration to it, and burnout has either a negative or an emptiness, a numbness involved in it. So highly driven but deeply responsible, which means that you care about things. You're the kind of person who steps in first. You might be a leader within your own community. You might be the person that people rely on because you're always volunteering your time, your efforts, your resources, and you're there to help people. You're the kind of person that other people rely on. And the thing is, often that person is carrying the most pressure because they don't speak to anybody, because you don't want to be a burden to anyone else. And I've said this plenty of times, and I'm going to keep saying it. But that kind of person is the person that we need to pay the most attention to. My mum says, who's there to comfort the comforter? Who's there to care for the carer? And often the best people in the world are the ones that do things, incredible things, in silence. And we just have no idea what they're going through, what they're experiencing, what load is on their shoulders. And today we're going to explore a little bit of that, because that can often influence what is happening within your body, even when you're doing the right things. So today is about understanding why doing all the right things sometimes isn't enough. So I mentioned before, this is for high performers, leaders, people carrying responsibility. No problem, Praline. This is being recorded, so there's going to be a replay. So afterwards, use the same link, and the video should be able to be seen. But please stay around. It'd be great to have you engage in this if you can. Write all your questions and thoughts in the chat, and I'll respond to them here. So just a little bit of a background as well, because as a burnout coach, I work predominantly with leaders in finance, tech, consulting, just the kind of areas where there's a lot of pressure, healthcare, things like that. And I see the same pattern happening repeatedly. People doing everything the books recommend, but it's not working. They're still feeling overwhelmed. They're still feeling mentally overloaded, and they're still feeling exhausted despite having success. So like I said before, the highly functioning, you're meeting your deadlines. Christy says, I hate to be the burden. I hear it. This used to be me as well, that I help clients with, is this idea of reshaping that narrative and understanding what it is that you hate about being a burden and what makes you think you are a burden when other people aren't a burden to you. Is it that you feel like other people won't be able to handle what you're going through? Is it that you feel like other people be there from the way that you need? Is it because you've had experience where people haven't been able to show up for you the way you wanted to be showed up for you? In which case, there's some work to do, and this session isn't about that, because I'm going to do a whole episode just about unburdening yourself. And just as a side note, there's a retreat in January that I'm building at the moment, which is called Unburdened, and it's specifically for the kind of people who carry all the burdens themselves. Because what usually happens is, and Christy, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, the person who doesn't like to unburden others to take the burden of others, and it's almost like hoarding. Emotional hoarding. You're the person people come to almost overshare sometimes, and you're there fixing, you're there, doing what it needs to be done, but you won't dare share any of that with anyone else, which means that they don't get the opportunity to be there for you. like you're there for them. And so no one wins. And so it's just something to think about, right? And that's what to do. So why isn't it working? And here's some of the things I've mentioned it before, but just to reiterate, examples of what people usually say that they're doing. Going back to the conversation I had on Reddit, they were doing their exercise. They tried to sleep properly because I think she was having 7 or 8 hours of sleep a day, managing the calendar, taking breaks, trying to switch off, but then they can't. Yet they're still overwhelmed, still mentally drained, still feeling behind. And that's not actually being behind because they're still meeting their deadlines, but because of this feeling of being burdened, is this feeling of being overwhelmed, of being drained. They feel like they're falling behind. They feel like they should be showing up in a certain way. They feel like they should be at 100% every day. They feel like they're constantly comparing themselves at their best. They're constantly comparing themselves to this perfectionist idea. They're constantly comparing themselves to expectations they've built, sometimes when they were younger, sometimes as they grew up, sometimes as a trauma response. But they've created this story, which means that they have to keep doing a certain thing a certain way, even though their body is telling them different. And so they feel like they're falling behind, even though there's no measure for any of it. And this happens everywhere in life, to be honest with you, right? I had a question earlier on about how to look at all of this in regards to remote working. You're doing everything that you feel like you should be doing, but um, to find remote work, for example, and you're applying everywhere, you're improving your CV, you're networking, but nothing's working. And one of the things that is important to note here, and I saw it earlier on, let me see if I can find it actually in my notes, because I do notes now. I'm love it. Usually I would just speak, but it's what I'm finding is sometimes it's good for my to a framework. I don't even have, there are, if you think about spheres of influence, the side circle is are in control. Second and third level is your sphere of concern. And what often happens is, for the people looking back at this question about the remote work, what is in your control is to do exactly what you're doing. You're doing the applications, you're doing the networking. That is all that is in control. Outside of that, outside of that is what is in your influence, which might be, you are sending the emails to people and you're giving them your best foot forward. You're oh, I've got a guest, hold on, weird, let me see if I can add you here. Hey,
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Mama. How are you?
Good. How's everyone else
Amazing. Let me,
doing?
good, thank you. It's where are you calling from?
I'm from Karachi, Pakistan.
Where are you calling in from,
I'm
Mama?
from Karachi, Pakistan.
Amazing. Karachi, Pakistan. Welcome. Beautiful thing about being international. Thank you for joining us. So, for you, what has been your experience in terms of doing everything but not feeling?
My experience, oh my God, you just touched the literal point of my heart because I pretty much was the responsible one at my family.
Yeah,
And in my
and that's
uni. So
mm, Sorry, yeah, you were saying you're the responsible person in your family and your uni, and you said when you went for your, and then it cut out a little bit. Oops, I think my network is broken, but you were saying that you are in your family and uni, and then it like eventually cut.
Yes, when I went for the MBA degree, then I got to know people are cheating only. And I have worked hard my entire life. So when you have worked hard and you know that you are the one who's capable, you as well, who are going to give in equally, and you're not like the only one holding down all the responsibility. The team has to combine together to make that effort to move forward. And just the team I have available at the moment, whether it's my family, whether it was my class, it was horrible. It was just, I am the only one doing 100% of the work for four people, for eight people, and people, I don't care. I just don't care. I am far too busy watching a movie, going out with friends. This is how you want to work? If this is how you want to work, then please join somewhere else. Get me out of here. So that became my main thing, and I pretty much crashed and burned because of these people. Because
Mm,
when you burden to such an extent and you don't go over and talk to anybody, you don't say, "Okay, oh my god, this is all happening," and you don't do that. You just say, "No, I'll take care. I can do this. I'll take care. Like piece of cake, baby. I can do this, and I've got this in my hand." So like when that and you are doing everything that just, so that pretty much happened with me, and now I'm trying to figure things out and look after myself and trying to get up. Like you said, you're back on track. So pretty much my friends and LinkedIn community helped me. So here I am again.
well, we're glad you're here, honestly. Um, could we mute ourselves just because I think there's um a lag.
Sorry.
So there's a lot in that. So you mentioned
Yeah.
that you are a person that you rely on, have always been, you motivate people at work, professionally, as well as personally. And then there's a lot of load, I can imagine, a lot of
Hmm.
pressure, when you can't rely on people around you.
Hmm.
So I completely get it. So I think if you feel like around you, then your body doesn't feel safe.
Hmm.
It means that it's constantly in fear.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. So I think what we're going to be talking about today is going to be very interesting. So I'm going to, because I've just got a few notes as I'm going to go through, but I'm so happy to have you
Hmm.
here, Omba. And because the next thing I was going to say is that there's like this universal pattern,
Hmm.
which isn't just about work stress. It shows up in careers, it shows up in health, it shows up in relationships, and the pattern is that but the progress feels low. So you're constantly working at 100%, and you feel like you're on a hamster wheel. You're just running, running, running. You're doing everything in your power. You're using all, like, you know how you have airplanes and they have like 4 or 6 turbines, and they're using all of them just to be able to get across the Atlantic. You feel like that. And then even worse is when one of those turbines blows up and now they're on 3 or 2 or 1, and you're still trying to get, you know, you're still trying to get across the water. And it can definitely feel like that, right?
Yes.
got
Yes.
you.
No, everything burned. For me,
Yeah.
everything burned. There's no engine. I am going down and I drowned, and I pretty much had to go to a psychologist and get myself back up. So, my degree now from MBA to MS HRM and organizational psychology.
Okay. Okay, that's perfect. Oh, we'll definitely talk after this. We need to have a conversation because um yeah, that there's a lot in organizational psychology that is so relevant here because then it's not about the effort because you're doing all the effort, right? Because what can sometimes happen is when we don't get the results we want, we think we need to work harder, and that can actually make it worse. So it's important to recognize that if we are running on full steam all the time, sometimes we're trying to solve the wrong problem.
Hmm.
So it's easy in that space to think that the problem is how hard I'm working, and we blame it on ourselves.
Hmm.
You know, we're like, oh, I'm not doing enough.
Hmm.
I should be doing this. I
Hmm.
should be doing that.
Hmm.
And that adds on top
Hmm.
of the already difficult situation, which means that we are just kicking ourselves when we're down.
Yes.
So, and the thing that I've noticed, which is why I started to look more into burnout coaching in the first place, is that a lot of online usually circles around productivity, time management, discipline, and those things do help, right? Productivity helps because you feel like you're moving forward. But what happens if you're already doing everything at 100%? Time management helps, but if you've got everything every half an hour, you have something for the whole day, then there's nothing you can do for wiggle room. Discipline helps because you do it despite how you feel, but then your emotions need space to actually function and still, signal to you that something is coming, like a wall you're about to hit. And habits are great.
Yes.
If you're going on autopilot, we don't actually give yourself time to process anything that's happening. So it's I'm finding, especially with the kind of clients I work with, it's not a lack of effort or organization at all. And the drivers are actually
Hmm.
usually kind of invisible. And I've talked about it before in some sessions, but I'll go over it again today. Four of them, not these aren't, exhaustive by any means, but four of the things I've seen most commonly with, especially with clients over the last, are constantly
Hmm.
thinking, especially if you're a manager, you're a director, a CEO, you're a head of an organization or even a department, you're constantly thinking, right? And what you find is
Hmm.
with the load, with the type of roles you have, if you don't have the team in place, if you don't have the support, not only are you constantly thinking, but you're also doing as well.
Hmm.
Because if your team needs support, if there's not enough to fill the roles, if the funding hasn't come through yet, or they haven't hired the right people and work is falling,
Hmm.
then your role
Hmm.
becomes the delivery as well. So you
Hmm.
don't even have time to think enough to be able to do your role as well, right? But then also, like, I mean, I'm a sucker for this, right? But if you saw my laptop, I have so many tabs, right? When you're working, you're thinking about, I've got to get my, kids home from school, think about what's happening with my grandma. I need to think about what this new starter is going to be thinking. I'm going to be thinking about this new person who's been promoted to manager. Do they have the right support? About what is the, operation psychology of the team? Going to affect our productivity. You're constantly thinking and there's a tab open all the time, which means that when you try and go to sleep and those tabs are still open, then they're your dreams, right? Which is why a lot of the times you wake up still tired. Yeah. So that's really a lot about you have the emotional labor.
Hmm.
Right? So you've got this ideations. You don't want to feel this emotion of disappointment. You don't want to feel like you're going to disappoint your line manager or your direct report. You're dealing with team emotions like someone is really strong in some area and someone needs help in another area, and they're going through the battle of feeling too much, or you're handling conflict between teams as well, which is affecting the rest of the team. Or maybe one person is burning out, and then the second person, and then the third person, and you're trying to understand what's happening, and create an environment where they feel like they can come to you, but it still takes time to build that trust because they haven't had a manager like you before. In fatigue, this
Hmm.
one, decision fatigue, when you are constantly making hundreds of small decisions every day,
Hmm.
right? You're
Hmm.
constantly where the productivity, the
Hmm.
performance, all of it relies on the
Hmm.
decisions you make now. And you're constantly
Hmm.
reminded that we are living in the results of yesterday's decisions,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You're judging, do I speak to this person right now, or do I let it slide? Do I,
Hmm.
do I raise this as a, do I call this person? Do I, this person needs time off, but it's going to influence if I say yes to this. And if how would I shape my resource to make sure that they don't feel overwhelmed? And then the last one is
Hmm.
responsibility without recovery. So when the pressure continues, because this is a role you fulfill, because you can't just stop being a manager just because you're tired. You can't stop being a parent. You can't stop being a brother or sister. You can't stop being the head of this organization or charity. Your role is set, and there's expectations of you to fulfill that role, which often we've created, right? We've accepted these roles, we brought it onto them ourselves, but now they're here and all of them are acting at the same time. It's okay when it's just one,
Yes.
you know,
You can't open front
but
at
now,
everything. No.
exactly. So now you've got layers and layers and
Hmm.
layers of expectations and roles and responsibilities, and it can feel overwhelming. You get your sleep. Yes, you take it well, but if all of these other things are happening, then you're still creating this environment, which is going to lead to overwhelm, leads to being burnt out, that leads to so many, absolutely. And it's just the knock on. So just to give a brief outline of how burnout works and overwhelm, it's to do with our bodily systems, right? So we've got our immune system, our digestive system, our sexual reproductive system. And we are all systems. And when we get stressed, bring energy from these systems to go into action, to defeat this thing, to do this deadline, jumps out the road. It pumps full of cortisol and adrenaline, which shifts our body systems out of balance. Yeah. And so what happens when our body systems are shifted out of balances for too long is that we're out of homeostasis, which is the state of healing. Over time, they start to shut down because they haven't been used in so long, right? Which is why you start feeling ill quite a lot. You start having back pains, and you start having migraines all of a sudden. You start being allergic to things that you weren't allergic to before. All these things start happening because your body systems have started to shut down, because the energy from those systems have been knocked out of balance by the stress we've been experiencing for such a long period of time. And so once you're at that stage, going to the gym not going to fix it. you know um Taking a nap isn't going to fix it. These things help, but by themselves they're not going to make the transformation that we're sometimes looking for. And in those moments a we need a combination of things to help us to recover from that. So this is what I call the nervous system problem, right?
Hmm.
So your brain never fully switches off because it's constantly
Hmm.
in high alert. You wake up thinking, oh my gosh, there's a deadline tomorrow. Oh no, it's not today. you know you're constantly thinking. And what you'll find as well, I don't know if you've experienced this, Umba, but your brain almost creates things to think about because it's in a state of panic all the time. So even if it's not a deadline today, it's going to be like, but what if I'm missing something? What if I
Exactly.
haven't given attention to
I
something?
can't see things. I can't hear things. I am imagining things. And there's
Mm,
nothing you're imagining. There's nothing you're not seeing. There's nothing you're not hearing. It's all in front of you. You're just unable to focus. You're just unable to
hmm.
structure your mind properly so that you can align every single thing in steps and be able to communicate, be able to work, be able to just live even. It just becomes
Absolutely.
a hodgepodge kind of a thing, and you're like, what am I doing? Okay, am I still breathing? Am I? Is that that actually
Yeah,
becomes
back
like
to the
what?
basics. And it's
That
crazy.
actually,
Some
it's crazy.
mm. Sorry, go for it. What were you saying?
Common.
Yeah, so I was saying that sometimes it's we have to get back to the basics, you know,
Hmm.
and it seems so simple speaking to a
Hmm.
client and we're talking about things that they do. It almost seems too simple, you know.
Hmm.
Make sure your breathing is right,
Exactly.
taking enough
Exactly.
breaks. Are you eating
Exactly.
3 times a day at least? Is your body getting enough nutrients? Like so,
Yeah.
for example, decision fatigue. If we don't have enough
Hmm.
protein, our cells can't function. If our
Hmm.
brain is full of cells which are made up of protein, that if we don't have enough protein, then our brain doesn't function. So if we're trying
It
to make
doesn't. Exactly.
decisions, require
It's not
energy,
going to
which
work.
is from it doesn't work exactly. So there's a lot of things that work at the same
Hmm.
time that we don't really think about enough. I
Hmm.
think responsibility is high. Your brain stays alert,
Hmm.
the nervous system stays activated, and the recovery never fully happens. And this is why you can go on holiday and come back and be
Hmm.
stressed again. You know, like you
And
take
yes,
that two
nah,
week
it
holiday,
doesn't make a difference.
makes no difference. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Whether it's rest, whether it's weekends, whether it's go on holiday, you don't feel the reset.
No.
And then
You're
what I
just going
found as
through the
well is that
motions. It's not working.
Mhm, exactly. Like it's habit at this point. You're going through the motions
Hmm.
because you think it should help, and it should in theory, but you don't realize how far your body has gone.
Hmm.
One of my favorite is be careful not to reward climbing a mountain because that's what we often we do
Hmm.
that deadline, whatever, and then immediately we go on to the we don't give
Hmm.
ourselves time, our bodies time to even
Time to
acknowledge
celebrate.
that we've
Yes.
achieved that we don't celebrate it at all, you know.
No.
Um, and there's a great book called Burnout by Emily and Amelia Nagoski, which talks about completing the stress cycle. And this part is so important because if we don't complete our stress cycle, which is where
Uh-huh.
our body recognizes that there's no more threat and it goes
Uh-huh.
back to balance, then it means it's
Uh-huh.
constantly up, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So definitely.
Can you
So
repeat the name?
productivity tools help
Can
with
you
things like organization,
can you
efficiency, output,
rename the
etc.
book?
But they don't necessarily. Oh, the name of the book?
Yes, and the author.
Okay, it's called Burnout
Burnout by.
by Emily and Amelia, Emelia. I want to say Nagoski, so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nagoski, Nag. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Emily and Amelia Nagoski, and it's called Burnout. It's a brilliant book,
Mm-hmm.
and it talks a lot. It's very practical.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very much applied to the workplace. and it was just a great book for me. I'm telling everyone about it
Hmm.
because it made a
Reveal
lot of
your secrets.
because if you're yeah, revealing the secrets, honestly, because they've done a really great job. And why I'm
Hmm.
so passionate about it is it's very simple. There's one everyone to um away with after reading that book and having a conversation here on LinkedIn on simply if you complete the stress to build
Hmm.
because it releases the stress. So
Hmm.
when something's happening, can I get back to
Hmm.
a relaxed state? Can I go from the
Hmm.
sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous
Hmm.
system? Because only
Hmm.
then can we actually relax and our body reset and heal. And can we
Hmm.
do that? You know,
Hmm.
is it something that you can do on the moment? Do you know the right techniques for you? You know, because those things can make a
Hmm.
difference.
Yes. It's
Because
personally going to
otherwise,
be tailored, no?
those things that
Hmm.
exactly. Because otherwise, those things that are
Hmm.
meant to help will actually make it
Hmm.
worse.
Hmm.
So, for example, if you're adding more systems, you're adding more tracking, you're adding more
Hmm.
expectations, you're adding more things,
Hmm. Hmm.
they're going to make things even worse. Like one of the things
Hmm.
that I'm really big on is traction bias. This idea that instead of adding help with something,
Hmm.
you take
Hmm.
options is if I'm taking breaks, I need to start um,
Hmm.
going on runs and going to the gym. I need to start eating organic. I need
Hmm.
to start all this kind of stuff. But if you're already burnt out,
Hmm.
that's just going to make it worse. So
Hmm.
then it's subtraction bias
Hmm.
is
So to.
capacity first.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And we talked
Hmm.
about this in one of the previous play. How can I delegate?
Hmm.
Is there anything I'm doing that
Hmm.
actually doesn't need to be done? You know, is there a role I'm playing that I
Hmm.
can share with somebody else? Can I train
Hmm.
someone so that in 3 months' time I don't have to do it at all? You
Hmm.
know, I remember my mum teaching me how to do household chores, and I get it now because because it
Finally, a
meant that
man
on a
can do
Saturday
that.
morning she didn't have to worry about exactly all those things. You know,
Hmm.
I think I must have been what like 8, 9 years
Oh
old
wow.
doing all the cook like cleaning and cooking and that was because she taught me all those things and she did it in such a way that I felt excited to do it. But looking back now,
Oh
I'm
wow.
thinking about how much
Uh-huh.
space, how much capacity that would give her, you know, doesn't have to do that anymore,
Hmm.
you know, because otherwise things just feel heavy and you who has to do everything. I
Hmm.
said in a client
Hmm.
call earlier on today, there's a difference with how much you take on is like the difference between 100 people solving one problem or person solving 100 problems is how much you expect of yourself. So
Yes.
I think one thing to think about right now is when 'cause I talk a lot about sustainable performance, especially when I'm working with leadership teams as well as individuals. There's 3 levels of recovery to think about, right? Because we've talked about all the things that can go wrong and why things aren't working. There's 3 levels of
Hmm.
recovery you want listening to pay attention
Hmm.
to. One is mental recovery. How can you recover your
Hmm.
mind? You've been paying attention on, you've been, you know, Muslims on, you've been doing all this stuff. How do you recover your mind? Is it that there's active and passive rest? Okay, so you've been doing all these cognitive load decisions all day. Go on a run, empty your mind. What you'll find is things like the shower is when all these ideas start rushing to your mind. 3 o'clock in the morning, when you're practically asleep, is when you suddenly have a burst of inspiration. Is because your mind has had a chance to shut down.
True.
Yeah, a chance to actually give time. On another day, I'm going to speak about the difference between sleep, rest, and recovery because they are the same thing. But recovery is regenerative. It's rebuilding the energy, right? It's rebuilding your capacity. If your load is at a minimum, how can you get back up to the top? And there's different frameworks for that. But I'll do on another day. Just because of time, I'm going to go through some of these. Then there's emotional recovery. This one is really important because people think so much about the mental recovery, but they don't realize how much of an impact the emotional load does to a person. Like you can be the top of your game, you the CEO, the director, the founder, the manager, all those kind of things, and you've always been 110%, and then all of a sudden you're at 30%, and you have no idea why until
Exactly.
you realize
Why,
exactly.
how it happened, what happened. You're like,
Mm,
okay, trying to find the questions and trying to find the answers, and they're not coming to you.
exactly. And one of the tools I use for this as well is timeline. So think to yourself, how long have I been feeling like this? At what point did things dip? And then ask yourself what was happening around that time. So
Hmm.
the example I often give is that I had a client and he was asking himself, like, I'm usually the top of the food chain at work. I'm doing this, that, and the other. I've had certain expectations of myself. I'm always, the person that can do X, Y, and Z. And now I'm really struggling to do the most basic things. And I don't know what happened.
Hmm.
And I said, okay, so how long have you been feeling like this? And he's like, I'd say maybe about 3, 4 months. And I said, okay, so what in your life was happening about 3 months, 4 months ago? He said,
Hmm.
oh, it's grief. You know,
Yes.
he lost someone dear to him and he hadn't
Yes.
processed it. And now all
Yes.
the basic functions that he had weren't functioning because he hadn't given it attention. Instead of giving it space to heal, he just went straight back into work and used that as an dealing with it. And now the emotional load is something that required attention. The moment he was aware of this, he was able to say, okay, I need to actually deal with this now. I'm suffering from grief. I didn't realize this was affecting me this much. Now I need to give it attention. And once he did,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
his emotional load started to, his emotional capacity started to rebuild. And then with that came his ability to think again. Because it's like being
Hmm.
underwater and you're scared and panicked. You're not being able to think about your taxes. You're not able to think about the decisions and where you want to be in 10 years' time when you
Hmm.
just need oxygen,
Hmm.
when you're struck with fear. So in this case, he realized the moment he gave himself time to recover emotionally, then everything else switched on. And then the third level of recovery, nervous system.
Hmm.
Like I mentioned, you have the ANS, the autonomic nervous system. That's all the things that you're thinking about it, your systems, all the systems I mentioned
Hmm.
before. Those things shut down, they need time to recover. So you can have your
Exactly.
mental recovery, you can have your emotional recovery, but if your nervous system is completely fried, then you still
Hmm.
won't get the results you're looking for. So
Hmm.
it's about giving
Exactly.
yourself time to actually heal your nervous system. And sometimes this takes time. And one of the things I say is that if it's taken 8 years to get to this stage, don't think it will take 8 minutes to get out of it. You know?
You can't recover that soon. Exactly.
Exactly. Some of the things I've heard, I'm like, yo, you're expecting an overnight miracle for something that took time to build, give it time.
I
And
need
this is
Botox.
exactly all of that complete detox,
Huh.
sometimes it takes that. It might take months. Sometimes, unfortunately, it might take
Hmm.
years. Like I've got a few of
Hmm.
my clients who they've 1 to 3 years sometimes for their nervous system to fully come out of that state and rewire. It's like in your
Hmm.
house when your bulbs explode, right? You need
Hmm.
to change the fuse.
Exactly.
Replacing the bulb isn't going to fix it. You need to change the
No.
fuse.
Yes.
And so without it, the performance slowly declines, right?
Exactly.
Increases, goes back to what you mentioned earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are you thinking, Umba? What's resonated with you so far?
Everything. This was this was my topic.
I'm glad it came at the right time. I'm glad it came at
Exactly. No, no. When God is willing to help you, everything comes at the right time.
exactly that. Exactly. Everything is placed for a reason. And
Yes.
so just to remind, just as a kind of like reminder, as a summary of what we've covered so far, real recovery looks like cognitive offloading, right? Getting it out of your head. And this is why things like the second, what do they call it? The secondary brain or something. Brain dump,
Mm-hmm.
journal, using technology to so you don't have to think inside, and cognitive offloading, nervous system, and you get yourself back from the um what's it called? The sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight, down to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest, give your body time
Yes.
to recover. There's emotional processing. Yeah, I'm fine. And trying to fool yourself, actually facing your emotions and realizing the emotions are actually the signals of something. And once we take the kind of like the judgment away from emotions, there's no good or bad emotions. They're just trying to tell you something. Anger is often telling us that someone's crossed our boundaries or our morals or our, values. Sadness is often about loss. Something is was meant to be one way in our heads and it hasn't been. Um, and you wish something was different. You know, joy is that everything is going great. All these things are trying to tell us something. And then you have structured decompression. So it's like you actually start to decompress. You become a shell of yourself, right? So most people only do like the surface. So, they don't do the deep stuff, which is where sometimes you might need more support. People doing organizational psychology, like Umba, right? People like me doing the burnout prevention
Yeah.
work. So yeah, so we can do the systems, we can help with the team, the revenue, because when people manage the teams, the revenue, the deadlines, the strategy from that particular mentality, then it means the cognitive load can increase dramatically, right? For the team, like I said, all these things change if you do it the right way. But it starts with understanding. This is one of the reasons why whenever I work with companies, for example, there's almost like a diagnostic stage. We go through a series of questions to understand what has been happening within the organization, how long it's been happening for, what is the impact in terms of, like I mentioned, revenue, in terms of absenteeism, presenteeism, is there sick leave, all these kind of things. And we paint a picture of what's actually going on that they may not relate to each other, go to together. The specific examples, the specific exercises, the specific program that will help to reverse some of that. It might be with certain individuals a little bit more than others. It might mean doing workshops which are just focused on psychological safety. It might mean looking at training in terms of leadership. Do the people who went from being part of the team to being the manager, do they have enough support in that process? Because now the work isn't the same. Now you're looking at people. You're trying to understand how they think to be able to get the best performance out of them, which is very different to working with the customer. All these things are so different. And all of this means that recovery has to be, it doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen by accident. We can't expect to have some kind of insurance to fix everything and just say, oh, but we do flex working or we give them gym access. It's fine. Sometimes it takes more than that, right? I think the cycle often looks like this, right? Is first step is that your high performance take on more, and this is the red flag. Actually, this is the red flag, and I remember when we brought this up. That high performer who ends up taking on more than they can handle because they've always taken on everything, and then they crash crash, and then you realize the only person to do all this stuff now is out, right? So, and what ends up happening is we celebrate that person. We're like, oh, thank you so much. You're so reliable. You're this, you're that. We celebrate, we reward the fact that they're able to do everything until they can't. So the first
Hmm.
step is that high performer takes on more. Then the pressure builds. That's the second stage. The pressure builds up, like, they're just taking on more and more and more. And you may not see it because they're so good at masking their stress that you think they're taking it in their stride. They're walking slowly into work. They're sitting down. You don't see them shouting at anybody. They seem relaxed, but inside they're panicking because they've had to learn these systems to be able to function at this level. And then the recovery decreases. So whenever they do something, usually their recovery might be a couple of days. They have to take time off a little bit longer. They're struggling to get back in the game when they lose attention in the right, and then their mental load increases. So now they
Hmm.
and then they start beating themselves up as well. And then the next stage is that their performance starts to drop. So they might have been able to, but then there's always a point where and then they try and work harder, and then the cycle continues. So even when they're not at their best, even when they're not functioning, they try and do more and more and more and more. And then it gets to the stage where it's just work, 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 collapse. Then they get better, and then they work, 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 collapse. There's no recovery. So a lot of the time, and this one's difficult to accept sometimes actually, if one person is calling in sick or faltering or they need help, then that might be an individual problem. By the time it gets to 3, 4, 5 people in the same team, then that's more of a systemic problem. So now we need to look at what is the system that's creating the environment which is burning out our best talent. And that can be a really difficult organization because then they have to face how do we create an environment which is conducive to high performance and high well-being, which is a question I don't think enough people ask. There seems to be this idea that if I'm high performing, then I won't have good well-being, and if I have good well-being, I won't be high performing. There's a way to have both, and a lot of the time it looks like. Say that again.
Work-life balance.
Work-life balance, and here's what I say as well. Like I would say, work, rest, play balance. Work, rest, play balance, and then life is over the top.
Right.
Because part of what brings burnout is people thinking that their life is as important as their work. Their work is as important as their life. They're weighing their life and their work equally, which means that they will happily do extra work and sacrifice their life and not realize it. It's a dangerous one.
That's
So then there's structural changes that might need to happen. Say that again.
That's dangerous. That is when the burnout starts.
Exactly, and it can be contagious. Unfortunately, it's they call it the burnout contagion, which is where one person gets burnt out, and then that creates pressure for someone else on the team, and then they get burnt out, and then that creates pressure on who's left on the team, then they get burnt out, especially if they leave without being replaced. So now 3 people are doing the job of 8, or in your case, one person is doing the job of 8 people, even when the other people are there,
Yes.
right?
Like, please get up. Like, please do something.
Yeah,
I'm right here helping you
please do
along the
something.
way. We can do this. There's nothing, there's no hurdles. Just please get up with me, just support me. But no,
Yeah,
there's a certain level of no and certain level of denial, which is like,
Yeah, and we touched on this a little bit. Was it 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago? I can't remember. It was responsibility is identity. What do you do when you're the person with responsibility and with the team members who aren't? So, I mean, without
Hmm.
going through this again, there are approaches you can have because it will burn you out ultimately.
Hmm.
If nothing changes, it will burn you out. So, is it that
Hmm.
you um, pay attention to what happens when you're on annual leave and the company still run?
Hmm.
Who steps in to
Hmm.
do the work when you're not around? And then realize that actually people do have the capacity to do this. They're just choosing not to when
Hmm.
I'm around.
Yes.
And is it that there's
There's no
something else
one
that's going on?
there. There's no one
Exactly.
there to hold the cup up to keep the boat
Yeah.
floating.
Got you.
It's gonna
Exactly.
drown. It's not going to
They're
sail.
gonna drown. And sometimes it's a matter of, it's gonna sound really weird, but sometimes it takes facing that for people to start working. Because if they've got such a functional safety net, why do they need to work?
Remove
Ultimately, I
that
can come into
that
work.
safety net. I'm not going to be there anymore. Get up, do
Mm,
something by yourself. Otherwise, no food for you. Sorry.
exactly. Sometimes we have to get to that point.
Yes.
And it's funny because I've got a framework called the relief framework, and there's like six elements of it. There's resilient mindset, which we talked about before, efficient stress management, which is the regulation and how do you get from sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system. There's lifestyle optimization, which is planning ahead. So can you look at your year ahead, your day ahead, your week, your month, and plan it so that really this is actually a key bit. This wasn't part of what I was going to talk about, but just as a key tip is pay attention to what your energy during the day and during the week. So at
Mm-hmm.
what points of day do you have creative energy, psychological energy, physical energy, and plan your day around those patterns. Because what sometimes happens is, for example,
The classic pattern.
when, yeah, exactly, right? So, I mean, all of this can be linked to your circadian rhythm and your sleep cycles, etc. But do you have energy for physical things in the morning, or are you more of a thinker in the morning? And if you're more of a thinker, do your thinking come instead? In the afternoon, when you get a little bit of energy, are you more creative or you're more physical, and start to put your tasks that way? So lifestyle optimization isn't about your lifestyle, but just in terms of your habits and things like that as well. And then it's inner alignment. This thing about purpose and fulfillment, because we see that that's a really big challenge for people who are experiencing burnout, is because they don't feel like anything they're doing really matters. They're not aligned with the values of the company anymore, and they feel like, what's the point? Anyone could do this job. It doesn't matter if
Yes.
it's me. I'm not really, you know, rewarded for the stuff I do anyway. So why bother? Right? So it's about inner alignment. Am I aligned with the work I'm doing? Is my work aligned with the company I'm working for? That kind of thing. Emotional mastery, going back to what we spoke about before, in terms of the anger, the even rage, doesn't function. Your sadness, your motivation, things like that. And then focused action is getting yourself into action mode and doing what you need to do. So resilient mindset, efficient stress management, lifestyle optimization, inner alignment, emotional mastery, and focused action. So if anybody who's watching wants to learn a little bit more of that, just type relief into the chat if you're watching it, and I'll send you a few things. Um, we're coming to the
Yes,
end of the
please do.
session now. Yeah, definitely will do. Coming to the end of the session now, so I'm gonna wrap up a little and open so if there's any questions, if anyone wants to put them in the chat, or if you have any questions as well, you can start. What's on your mind? Any questions, Umba? Any questions? Anyone in the chat? Let me see what they're saying. I realize sometimes I can talk for like a whole hour. Okay, let's see here. All right, if there's no questions, one thing that I would like to share before I go, because it'd be remiss not to mention it. We've talked about all these things we've mentioned, especially those last four. Sometimes it's not easy to do by yourself. Sometimes you need a bit of someone who knows how to walk yourself through these phases, kind of like hand-holding it, as it were. And so there is a program I'm running called Ascend, which is a 12-week program that starts in April. And so if you have come to this session and felt like, oh, do you know what, I might need more support, just type in Ascend to the chat or DM me and I'll give you the details. Like I said, it's a 12-week program. It's designed to rebuild your clarity, regain your energy, reset your nervous system over 12 weeks, and get to the point where you're able to perform sustainably without burning out. So we help you put systems together to help you do that. There's a framework involved, there's guided implementation, and there's coaching individually as well as group coaching as a group. What we find is something that one person might be challenged with or something that they do also acts as a really good guidance for someone. Plus you get support. What we find is as well, if you're the person who doesn't want to talk to anyone because you feel like you're burdening them, this is a room of people like that. So you're not burdening anyone because we all understand what you're going through. So if that is something for you, what I'll do is I'll put the link to it in the comment section after this chat ends. But in the meantime, any questions at all? Omba, how are you feeling?
Great session.
Great session. Thank you.
I'm I'm feeling the usual at this point. Trying to just adjust to, I guess, the new way.
Yeah, I hear that. It's the new way. It's all we can do. And if we do need any support, just let me know. And I feel like we need to chat anyway. In organizational psychology, there's a lot of overlap in what we do. But what I've noticed as well, even as my mum said, who's there to help the helper? Who's there to comfort the comforter? Even the coaches need coaches. Even the psychologists need psychologists, so we can all support each other. Because I think, and this is one of the reasons why when I go into companies and universities or organizations and charities, I work with the leadership as well, like first, actually, because what often happens is we go to the person who's at the delivery stage. The people who are at the delivery stage are looked after by people who are burnt out. And so we go from the top to the bottom, supporting them at each level and saying, okay, for example, I did some work with the NHS and some of the medical students at London South Bank University, and we wanted to work with the staff members because the staff members are the ones who are the students, and if they don't have the capacity, then the students feel it. And so sometimes we need that support, and I feel like that can sometimes be missed.
That's what I think, that the executives are not really doing their jobs. That's why the problems exist. The management is not doing the job. So why are we promoting these people to managers?
Yeah, and this is something I've seen as well, because the question you asked is, why are we promoting these people to managers? We promoted them to managers because they were good at what they were doing at that level before. The only thing is that now they're not doing that anymore.
Hmm.
Now their role as a manager has completely changed. They don't
Changed.
train them in what it means to be a manager. Managers, emotional intelligence, it's psychological safety, it's patience, it's planning, it's all these things. It's understanding about how to coach the best out of an individual. It's got nothing to do with the delivery at that point.
Yeah.
Your
This,
responsibility as a manager is now the people and not
this
the
is what
product.
I feel that women are much
Mm.
better at teaching this because we're always taught to keep that smile, bright, shine, and men are like angry.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm just gonna hit you. I'm just gonna get angry with you. I'm just gonna
Mm.
blast you. Don't come near me.
Mm.
That doesn't
Yeah.
work as management. You've got to be really nice and polite and got to keep that evil keel.
And I think at the root of all of that, you've got to care as well. Like you actually got to care about people.
Mm,
So this is my flock. These are my, these are the people who are working. I am the steward of this team. I've got
exactly.
to care about their well-being so that they
Exactly.
are able to focus on what they're meant to be delivering. If I don't care, they feel it, and it shows up in their performance a lot of the time. You know, and I think that's something that needs to be taught. It's not something that's. I think people assume that if I just become a manager, I'll just figure it out, and it can't be that hard. It is that hard because if you speak to anybody doing their job, the hardest part isn't the job; it's the people. At any level. So it's really important to be able to train our managers, train our directors, train the leadership on what it means to lead the team while still delivering a great product,
There is.
while still
Exactly.
developing a company, while still guiding its direction in terms of the market, trends, and everything. And it takes a lot of work. It takes skill, but it can
Exactly.
be learned.
It can be learned. You've got to learn to smile, to laugh, to
Hmm.
be able to just take a joke on your own self and not
Hmm.
be like all the time, I'm just going to be angry with you just because you said a mean word to me. Sorry. That person will say a mean word against the boss, against the manager, and you've still got to be able to smile.
Mm.
You're taking that mean word.
Mm. 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 I think that's a good point to round up actually. So it is 7:49 on this side of the water. So thank you very much everyone for being here. Please do leave any questions or comments in the comment section, and I will come back and respond to them as soon as I can. Like I said, if you need any more support on any of this, um, comes up to you and say, okay, this is great. I know what to do, but I need support in doing it. Then just type in ascend into the chat and I'll send you the details over for the program, or just DM me and we'll speak. There is like a 30-minute consultation that I offer where we can talk about what your challenges are specifically to you, and then we can see if there's anything that I do that can support you if it's something that you think needs more than that 30 minutes to address. So thank you very much for joining me here. It's been fantastic having you. Hopefully see you again. Every 2 weeks I do something. I do have, I completely forgot. I do have an online community as well. So a lot of my frameworks, a lot of my teaching, a lot of my coaching and things happen on there. So I'll put the link to that in the comments as well. That's it's called the Relief Hub. So that is where stuff like this. So there's Relief Hub and then there's Ascend. So thank you very much, everyone. It's been amazing seeing you. Thank you, Nassim. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, Proline, for being here. Thank you, Omba. I appreciate you. And I'll chat to you all soon. I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Good night.